Okay, so now what we've done is we've gone through starting up a project process to set a high-level view of the project, to see whether it's worth funding any further, to give a worthwhile or viability towards the project itself. Once we've established that with the project brief and planned for the initiation stage, when we've gone to the board to get authorization to proceed to initiate the project. So now we go to initiation stage. We put a lot more detail behind the project, initiating a project process, but it's also a stage now because there's a lot of work going on. We've gone through all that, put the plan, understood how we're going to handle certain aspects like risk and quality, etc. Finalize the details of the organization, controls, benefits review plan, and looked at the approach we're going to take, how we're going to build the solution from here onwards, right, which they call project approach. And then finally, put in a plan for the next stage. And what we're really doing is the very first part of the delivery aspect of the project. And we do that in the stage boundary. The stage boundary marks the end of a stage. That's what they call a boundary, strange enough. And at that point, we update everything, and then we plan to go on to the next bit. That's what we're doing really, that boundary. We've marked all the work doing during that work. And we're going to see that in more detail now, because we've gone to the board with that, say, okay, are you ready to authorize, deliver the project? At which point, we will hope that they will do just that. So we've come from initiating a project process, gone to the board, and we've made the request to deliver the project, and we're going to get just that, to authorize, deliver a project, right? So that's what happens there. Now, once they've done that, we then move into the second stage. Now we're in the second stage. So a project in a PRINCE2 framework can have two stages, right? One is usually the initiation, and the next one is the delivery bit. So you might have one delivery stage. So we're going to look at that right now. And we have two processes happening in this. The first one is controlling the stage. And this is where the project manager will sit and orchestrate everything from their deck chair, whatever it happens to be. They'll orchestrate the functionality and the project itself. Okay, so we're going to look at what goes on within controlling the stage, and the one underneath is the box for managing the product delivery. Now, the PRINCE2 concentrates on controlling the stage. The product delivery is something that's done elsewhere. Well, it's done within the project, but it's not really concerned. We're talking about managing projects here, so its original idea was kept up that level. Now we have PRINCE2 Agile. Now it's incorporating a sort of Scrum approach, an iterative development approach in Scrum, which is now looking at more detail on how we do that in the managing the product delivery process. So we have controlling a stage up here, controlling a stage. And then down here we have managing the product delivery. Managing product delivery. And there's a link between them. The idea of this is that it has to be a link, because remember the PM sat here and there's product delivery down here. Now remember, I'm going through a high level view here, so it's just to give an idea what we're doing here. So the authorization has come from the board in directing a project process, because that's where the board operate, remember, they're directing a project process. They operate there by getting requests in, authorizing the stages, feeding information up to the corporate area or the program if you're part of a program, providing ad hoc advice as well, and also handling exceptions. So when things are beyond the project manager's control, or authoritative control, let's put it that way, then you'll see how that works as well, and they're part of that decision making as well. So controlling a stage. Right, now when you go through this in the book, the first thing that happens is that what we're doing here is getting work done. So the first thing that's happening here is to assign work to be done. So what happens here is we have the first box here doing just that. And this is where the project manager now authorizes work packages. Authorize, right, work package. And that will be done in consultation with the team manager. Now, the team manager works down in the product delivery process. So in Prince, the project manager will work here, and alongside the team manager will authorize the work package. They'll put it together first of all, look exactly what they're supposed to be building here, because obviously you might have quite a few of these going on in a plan. I'll draw that up and you'll see what I'm meaning about. And they authorize that work package. So it's no surprise to the team manager when that work package comes in here and they accept that work package. I'm going to do that down here in a box. They accept the work package. Work package. Now, it's very important to understand when they accept it. It means they've agreed what's in it, as you'll see, because when we get it back, the project manager receives it. But the project manager is only receiving it at this point in time, right? So there's no authoritative or no acceptance of the work package, because at the end of the day, it's not the PM's responsibility to do that. This is business who are responsible to do that. All the PM's doing is getting the package back from the work that's been convened by somebody. So what they'll do is they'll get the work package there, and they will then execute this work package. So they'll carry out the work they've got to do. Execute. Nice word. Execute work package. And then finally, they will then deliver the completed package. So deliver completed package. So accept the work, execute it. So do the work they've got to do, and then deliver it back. So that's what happens at the end of this particular process for this particular concept, is it comes back up in here and the project manager now receives it. And like I said, there's a big importance on here because it's a case of just taking it back and not accepting what's in the work package formally from that particular point of view. This is the business responsibility. So receive work package. So this is really what goes on here. Authorize the work package, agree that with the team manager. Team manager takes it, goes to the group, wherever they happen to be, internal, external suppliers, doesn't matter. Execute that, build the package, deliver it back, and then the PM receives it. And then, hey presto, what happens next is whatever you decided to happen next. Do I bolt it with other stuff? Do I deploy it? Or do I wait till the end of the project, or program for that matter, usually the project, the end of a tranche in a program? Right. So bear in mind, how it would look in some cases is like this, for instance. If this is my particular stage where I'm functioning, stage for the project, in this particular instance, I'm handling out work packages. I might handle one here, it will get done by the team and it will come back here. Then I'll handle another one out, for instance, along here. This might come back pretty quickly. Another one might go across here. So the colours represent possibly different suppliers, different work packages for different things. And I might have, a few going on like this, right, all the way through the project and all the way through that particular stage. So you've got work packages being authorised, received, work done on them, and then got back at various points throughout your particular stage. And at the end, obviously, you'll collect them depending what that stage is meant to do. If you collect them and going to deploy something, you'll bolt them all together, or you just put them in a cupboard and wait for somebody to come and look at them and sign them off later. But that's the principle of what goes on within the stage, initially. Now, other things happen within that stage. So, the first functionality that goes on here is for the PM to monitor and keep control on the stage, right? So, review stage status. Where are we at any one point in time with the stage itself, right? And that's done in various formats. The first one, of course, is to look at how the build's getting on. So during the managing product delivery, there will be a feed in here with the checkpoint reports. Checkpoint reports. So there will be something in the work package that the PM would have arranged with the team manager to provide checkpoint reports. And of course, the idea, is sometime delayed just after that, they'll be sending up highlight reports, right? Highlight reports to corporate program, whoever happens to work, to the board actually, first of all, beg your pardon. Highlight reports to the project board, sitting in directing a project. Right. So that's the general functionality that goes on here. Now, doesn't always quite work so easily, does it? Because one of the other points of sitting in that box in here, reviewing stage status, is to look and track things like risks and issues. There are going to be risks already associated with this particular stage because you know what you're building, and there are certain risks associated with that, right? So in here, what the project manager is doing in here, if we get a risk that materializes or an issue that suddenly appears on the board, we'll put in here an issue coming up, right? Then it will capture those risks or issues depending, right? Issues. So that's part of the stage here. And what will happen then, of course, is the PM needs to take corrective action. Take corrective action. Now, what does that mean at this point? Well, the first thing is, of course, the corrective action depends on what the situation is. And this is when we get down to the progress and looking at managing by exception, tolerances mainly, right? It's about empowerment to the project manager, and it ripples down actually from corporate stroke program into directing, into the PM, and into the team leader. So it goes through these three main levels of management within the team. We've got directing level, managing level, and delivering levels, right? So the board will have certain tolerance set on them from corporate stroke program about how much leeway they've got, right? And the same, the board will set tolerances on the project manager, say, well, you've got a certain amount of boundary to work within before you need to report. Now, this is very important to understand. Tolerances are not there to say you've got a week's grace on top of the project or that stage or that work package. What it's saying is, if it looks like you're forecasting to go beyond our level of comfort that we leave you in control with, right? So I've got a stage here and you're saying to the PM, it's a 6-week stage, but if you go beyond 7 weeks, or it looks like, and this is very important, forecasts that go beyond the 7 weeks, we need to step in. It's out of your control in some respects. That means the PM can't control it. What it means, we've out of the authority we're giving you for whatever reason, now we need to step in and provide some direction and decision for you instead, right? And this is what tolerances are about. This is about empowerment. It's the same thing, right? So we're giving you the authority to do that. If it goes beyond that, then we need to step in and provide some more detailed decision on it, right? And that's what they're about. Not you've got the extra week to play with. It's saying if you're going to go into that. And this is very important. I'm stressing it because this is where people get a little mixed up in it, right? It's about empowerment. So what will happen is an issue will come into place from wherever. It could be an issue to do with some specification build or a change of scope, from the top, or the specification from underneath. It's an issue, and the PM now has to deal with it, right? And we look at all this, the configuration and the change management, issue management in another session. But what happens now is that the PM is now going to decide, is it within my remit to fix that up? Yes or no? If yes, then the PM can do something about it and then fix it up, but obviously document the first thing you're going to do, but fix it up. If not, then the PM has to decide, do I need some help? And at this point, they may well need to decide to actually escalate this particular, so I'm going to put this in red here, right? So escalate the risk or the issue, right? The risk issue, right? To corporate, because now the decision needs to be with them how they're going to fix it. So this is the corrective action to start with. Can I fix it? No, I need to escalate. Right? And I need to escalate this up and put an issue report and an escalation report to say I've got a problem here. Right? Now, if that means that whatever's going to go is going beyond the bounds of the particular stage at this point, then we have to go to the next level, which we'll look at in a minute. The first thing is, can we fix it up within the bounds we've got already? Right? If we can fix it up and don't go beyond the 6-week time frame, for instance, then we can carry on with the project and we can fix up the issue because we've now had a decision to do that. If it looks like we can't do that and we have to change the length of the stage, for example, or change the scope, for example, then we're in exception. So then we have to raise an exception report, right? And that means raise an exception report, because now we're in exception of the stage, and that's when it starts to get important, right? So now we're leaving the decision to the board to decide what to do next. So now if they say you've got to add an extra week to the stage, or you've got to replan the stage, then we're going to be at the next process, which we'll look in more detail in a moment, called a stage boundary. Right? Because the stage boundary is marking the end of that particular stage. Now, in normal times, when I've completed all the work, like in here, I've done all the work, I've got to the end, that's where I am. I've done the work, now I've got to wrap everything up for that stage to say, where have we been, where are we right now, and where do we want to go to next? Because this is when the board are going to make a decision about how they see that, those three areas, the past, the present, and the future. Is it still desirable, viable, and achievable? Do we still want to go on, right? But so we'll get to that in a minute. If, of course, there is an exception, right, and they decide they need to plan, then technically we are at the stage boundary already, because now the stage is no longer viable. The stage plan is no longer viable. That's where we are. And what they then need to do is to produce an exception plan. So they'll ask for an exception plan, right, which the PM will need to produce and then go back to the board and say, here's the exception plan. How do you like that? Is it going to work for us or not? In which case, if it's changing the length of the stage, adding on here, now we have a new stage plan. And that's the new plan. So it takes over the old stage. So the exception plan now becomes the new stage plan for that stage. Whether it's shortening it or not. It might be that you're here and you've got to chop it at that point. So your stage, of course, that's why you have a boundary. Because technically your current stage plan is no longer viable. I'm at the boundary temporarily while the plan gets authorized. And if it's shortening or lengthening it, then it'll make lengthening it, I should say, then that's what the action will be. Okay, and then we will go back to carrying on. If we're stretching it, we'll go back. If we've finished the boundary, but if we've finished the stage, we stay at the boundary and then shut that stage down and update all the documents. All right. So make sure when you've got the exception plan, depending on that is where you are next. And then they'll approve it and take that action from there onwards. Okay, so this is how an exception works. The issue's raised, track it through. If we need to raise an exception because it's going to take us out of the current boundaries for whatever reason, go to the board. They'll ask for a plan, which you may well have done already, but wait until they ask for one. Go back. Once it's signed off, that plan now becomes the new stage plan and put into action whatever that new plan means. All right. Now, winding all that back, as soon as we've gone through a normal stage and we've completed all the work at the stage, now we're at the boundary. Okay. Now we've come to the end of the stage. We've done all the products we needed to do for the stage. So what we want to do now is get the board to make a decision about where we are at the moment. So the first thing, as we just said, is look at the past. So we need to update all the documents relevant to that part. So we have an end stage report. To start with, end stage report to help us understand where we are. So we update the plan, the project plan will get updated, right? Because now that comes from the stage plan. So that comes from the updated stage plan, right? Whether it's an exception plan or not, it doesn't matter. It's now we've completed the stage. Can we update the stage plan as we go along through the stage? We don't update the project plan until we completed the stage because it's fed into it. You don't do both at the same time, really. Well, you shouldn't do, really. So we looked at the past, decide where we are right now, how we completed what we want, what do we like. Now we've got to look at the present, right? So we make sure we got all our configurations done, make sure all our configurations are up to date, configurations for all the products we've built. We need to make sure all the registers are up to date. What we've got here, and that the business case is still relevant. In that case, is there any change to the business case? Because now the business needs to make a decision about where we are on that point too. Where are we right now? Do we like what we've got right now? Right? Have we completed all the work we've done so far based on that? And then we need to look to the future. And of course, the main thing about the future is the next stage plan. Next. And they will use that to say, what are we doing next? Do we still want that doing? Do we like the money we've got to spend on it? Is it still viable, desirable, and achievable based on this information? And at that point, right, if they're agreeable to that, because this is what we're doing in this stage boundary, what we will then do is go to the board to request authorize the next stage, authorize next stage. And that's when the board come in, right? Now, like I said, parts of this too, sometimes besides the highlight reports, there may be times when the PM might want to go up to the board and ask for ad hoc advice, but it's a two-way trip, ad hoc advice. So there might be one way or the other way. So the board might be asking for ad hoc advice from the project manager, just give us an update where we are with our products. We have things like product status accounts and product status reports that help us do that. But product status account actually just say, where are all our products at any one point in time that we're doing during this stage or up to this point in time in the project, if you like. Okay, we'll look at that more in detail as well, how that particular product gets used towards the end, especially when we go closing, which we'll have a look in a short while. So we get to the stage boundary, everything's shut down, we've handed all the products over, what are we going to do with them at that point? Look at where we are, where we've been, and where we're about to go to next. And then go to the board with that information and say, okay, how do you like them apples? What do we do next? Do you wish to sign off now to go to the next stage? Are we still wanting the project? But do remember, when can the business make a decision? Anytime during the project. Anytime the board may come around and say, no longer wanted, can't afford it anymore, change the direction, close the project down anyway. And we'll look at how we handle premature closure in a short while. But that's the real core of the work, and we'll go from one stage to the next stage, how many you've done until we get to the penultimate stage where we're probably finishing down, and then we'll look at how we get into the final stage and close the project at that point. So there's a final stage with the closing project process, part of that final stage. No stage boundary at that point, because there's no boundary between one stage, because there is no other stage after that point. Okay, so that's the core of the work so far.